Next, we're going to hear about the red light camera program in the city of New York. Mr. Michael Weiss, the Chief Administrative Officer of the Department of Transportation there, and Rudolph Papalizio, the Chief Signal Operations and Red Light Camera Chief from the same department. Did I do all right?
Fine. A few weeks ago, a management consultant wrote an op-ed piece in the Wall Street Journal. His father had decided to conduct a business process re-engineering analysis of his family, and after much research, he came to the conclusion that his son was no longer adding value to the family unit. So he offered him a severance package. Well, we haven't gone that far in New York City, but we have re-engineered a process that deals with one of our most difficult traffic safety problems, that of running red lights. Last year, nearly 300 pedestrians were killed in traffic accidents and 15,000 others injured. And that's more than 41 deaths and injuries per day taking place in the city. The police issued more than 255,000 summonses for red light violations last year. One way to address this problem is to stop people from running red lights. So 18 months ago, we deployed 15 cameras at 20 locations in bulletproof steel cases around the city in order to photograph and find people who run red lights. Thanks to the strong support of Mayor Giuliani and Transportation Commissioner Lee Sander, who's joined us today as an observer, we will go to 30 cameras by the end of this year. As of today, this morning in fact, we've issued 235,000 summonses or notices of liability. We call them NOLs. If you have not seen an NOL, you should. It contains two, not because you got one, it contains two high-resolution photographs of the vehicle as it passes through the crosswalk, as well as a beautiful close-up of the license plate. This program is one of a true public-private partnership. We use a contractor, electronic data system, who supplies the cameras and the film and the maintenance. On that film, we have imprinted the date, time, and location of each offense. We also get from EDS the computer hardware and software to keep the data, and then city employees do all the rest. They certify the violations from the film, send out the violation notices, and store the data electronically so that it can be transmitted to a remote site where city-trained administrative law judges are available for anyone who wishes to have a hearing on the summons. This is the first red light photographic enforcement program in the United States, and New York City is the only jurisdiction to actually send the photographs to the respondent. It's such a new approach to law enforcement that it's required both city and state legislation. When motorists see the summonses and the pictures on the NOL, they know they've been caught. That is why 62% have been paying the summons right off the first notice, as compared to only 20% of regular parking tickets. And in fact, only 5% have contested the summonses, compared to 20% contesting their regular parking tickets. Of course, there are always people trying to beat the system. We've had one motorist who sawed down the pole with the camera on it. Somebody else mooned the camera. And in fact, we've gotten the finger in a couple of cases. One very innovative motorcyclist covered their license plate with their hand as they went through the red light. But this system is really hard to beat. And in fact, it provides a 24-hour enforcement presence that frees up law enforcement people for other responsibilities. The program also pays for itself. In fact, the violators are paying for it. We've collected $8.5 million in fines to date, a rate which will at least cover the $14 million cost of the program. And in fact, we may even turn a small profit, although that's not the primary reason for the program. The novelty has brought substantial media coverage, and we've been featured on television and in newspapers. It's heightened public awareness of this problem, and in fact, the secondary effect is that accidents have been reduced in the city, pedestrian-involved accidents by 12% in the last year. The compliance at the intersections themselves, 20% reduction in non-compliance, And the program is flexible. It can be tailor-made to many jurisdictions. We've had many people contact us about this program. During the few minutes that I've been speaking to you, in fact, we've issued 15 more violations for running red lights.
Do you know
That's
that for a
15
fact?
Statistically.
I see.
15 more New Yorkers who know that a picture is worth not 1,000 words, but a $50 fine.
I hate to interrupt. Our first 5 minutes has come to an end. We have two pending questions, one from Dick and one from Tom.
First of all, do you have any sense that this represents a little bit of overkill? Secondly, how many of the 300 or so traffic-related deaths are directly attributable to the someone running a red light?
Well, what we tried to do, picking locations, was look at high accident locations, plus I was able to contact most of the police precincts and find out their locations where they had high incidents of red light runners. So what I did was use that as the basis for locating the cameras. We wanted to make sure that when we went to a location, it was indeed either a high incident or a high accident location. The main purpose of the program is to increase the safety of the motoring and pedestrian public.
Just to pick up, I think in terms of reduction of accidents, we generally feel that unless you have a 3-year sequence of data, it may not be statistically significant. And so we're monitoring actual reduction in accidents at those intersections, but it's too early to tell whether it's a significant reduction, although we do know that compliance is better, as I mentioned before.
Tom, and then Margot.
Do they have programs like this in Europe?
Yes, originally for a few years, well, a lot of years, back in the 80s and the 70s, I believe, Europe had it in Australia. The camera that we do use is from Germany.
Mm-hmm. And is this the cutting edge of things to come? Are we likely to see the city erect a camera program to detect conceivably people who are speeding or jaywalking? Or, I mean, does it have other applications?
Speeding is an offshoot that can be used. In fact, there is in the western half of the country a speeding program that uses the same type of technology where they capture a picture of somebody exceeding the speed. Yes, this can be used as a tool eventually as speed. Jaywalking would be difficult.
Thank you.
Margot?
I'm curious as to whether you have any sense of whether or not the presence of these cameras has caused people to change their driving routes.
I wouldn't know for sure, but I'd rather doubt it. I think what we're finding is that compliance is better. I personally know some of the intersections very well that have been wired up. And I know from my own experience, people telling me that they're very careful at those locations, which is important. But again, the secondary effect of just heightening the issue of red light running in the city as a result of the publicity from this program has been extremely important. And that's even, I think, a greater effect. Also, by the way, we are putting out what we call dummy boxes. That is, boxes that don't contain cameras, but that could receive cameras, so we can extend the scope of the program in a less costly way by moving cameras around to locations.
Follow up by Tom, and then...
Could you submit a list to us of these intersections in the city? No.
Next question, Dot.
Yes, can you tell me what proportion of the violators that you catch on film have out-of-state licenses, either Connecticut, New Jersey, or even someplace else, and what happens to those folk?
Well, I think we've captured about 100,000 out-of-staters right now. The biggest one being Jersey, of course, they're our neighbor.
What proportion is that? Give me a sense.
100,000 out of 200,000. Well, no, it can't be 100,000. It's got to be 10,000. I'm sorry, 10,000 at the 200,000. So it's a small percentage. But we are now working, trying to get a database from the neighboring states to be able to get the names and addresses via their license plates.
20,000 out of 100,000. Is that correct? I mean, is it, I'm sorry.
About 10,000 out of 235.
Out of 200.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you. I think our time is now up. Oh, no. We have 30 seconds to go. Barbara.
30-second question. Have you ever been questioned or challenged on the privacy issue of locating someone at a certain place at a certain time when their spouse or others may believe they are someplace else?
Okay.
I have heard it happening. They have not asked me the question.
Let me just say that this is a parking ticket, the equivalent of a parking ticket. That was what the legislation enabled us to do. It doesn't go out to the driver. We don't photograph the driver. We photograph the license plate from the rear.